Well, I just spoke to someone from Jabal al-Zawiyah in the province of Idlib. The way he was describing the situation is that there is an offensive going on, still going on, by the government security forces against activists, and especially those who had decided to carry arms, and with some of the army defectors who have taken shelter in that province. Many of the villages are being attacked. He says many of the villagers have fled their homes. They fled to the mountains. In some areas, especially today, most of the battles and most of the offensive was taking place in the western, southern part of Jabal al-Zawiyah in an area called Jabal. And he says over there, the villagers were collected at least 40 bodies. They only identified 30 of them. In many cases, the men couldn't go back to the villages to bury the dead. The women did that, took care of that process. And he says the offensive is still going on. The government media is saying that there was an offensive. It was against armed terrorist groups, and that many were killed, some were injured, others arrested. But they say the offensive is over. But the activists on the ground, they say this assault by the government is still going on. And they were desperate. The people we have been talking to, they are expressing a lot of despair. And it puts a lot of skepticism for them in the value of the Syrian government acceptance to the presence and to the mission of the Arab League observers who should be arriving in Syria, at least an advance team, tomorrow, Thursday.
We know, of course, that the activists, the Syrian opposition, are quite keen to have things like a no-fly zone, perhaps some sort of humanitarian corridor. But what about ordinary Syrians? Is it possible to gauge the feeling among ordinary people about whether they would welcome such international action?
Well, it's not actually a very yes or no answer, because it depends whom do you talk to. In places like Jabal al-Zawiyah, where it has emerged through in the past 9 months as a very strong stronghold for the protesters, whether peaceful or armed groups, and have been suffering a lot from the brutal crackdown by the government. These people want international intervention. They want the people outside Syria to come and help them, to protect them from the government. If you talk to people in other places, they are very skeptical of this international intervention. On one hand, they think it's not feasible. On the other hand, they are afraid on what it will do to the country. They are very concerned that the peaceful protest that started in Syria 9 months ago is turning into an armed conflict, and that puts the country on the verge of civil war. And many, even those who don't want this regime and who oppose it and want it to fall, they believe maybe if there's a way to find a transitional period, it's better than to go through this very bloody path. So it depends whom do you talk to. It's a very polarizing issue, and people are taking very strong stand on it.